beginning of time we came, moving silently through the centuries, living many secret lives, struggling to reach the time of the gathering, when the few who remain will battle to the last. No one has ever known we were among you, until now. Good evening and welcome to Movie Watch Live. My name's Pete Mack, and joining me tonight is Carl Hungus and Aldous Huxley. Tonight we'll be watching probably the most well-known sword and sorcery film of the 1980s, a classic, massive fan favorite, Highlander from 1989. Good evening, Carl.
Good evening, Pete. Thanks again for the invitation to be here with you all this evening. And yes, we're going to be watching Highlander. Hail Centurions, hail Valkyries. Strap yourselves in. This one's going to be a blockbuster.
Indeed. And good evening, Hooks.
Good evening, Pete. Thanks again for having me back. Highlander this week. It's a blend of action film and music video. And it encapsulates so much that's great about 80s sword and sorcery / fantasy / sci-fi filmmaking. And I'm really looking forward to this one.
Indeed. Absolutely. This is a real feast, this one. And I think I've mentioned before that when we three discussed the kind of films we were interested in doing movie watches for, this one was the one we wanted to cap the whole series off with. So this is the last in our sword and sorcery series. We will be coming back later to start a new series in a different style, but this is really the crescendo to the whole series. So again, as normal, what we'll do is give people a chance to get the movie running. I think both me and Carl have got the movie on YouTube, but you can also get it on Amazon as well. So it's available everywhere, as far as I know, all the normal sources. And if you have a copy on a DVD or Blu-ray, whichever, you can go ahead and use that source as well. Before we go ahead and start the movie, any last thoughts, things to look out for, all this, or Carl?
No, just sit back and enjoy the movie. And, as we see things come up, we're going to point them out.
Absolutely. So without further ado, we're going to start the ball rolling. So as usual, I'll count down from 3. So I'll go 3, 2, 1, and after 1, I'll say go, and on the I'll count go. If you just go ahead and press play, and we should all be synced. And if you need a timestamp, just let us know in the chat. So if everybody's ready, I'll just start the countdown, which is 3, 2, 1, go.
All right.
There we go. So I've got the 30th anniversary version, and I'm seeing a Studio Canal intro there.
Yes, that's right. The
Yep.
blue sky and the white clouds and all that. Yeah.
Excellent. Right. So this is the last of the sword and sorcery, and it's the first that none of us have managed to boomer up the start of the video.
Right. Right.
Well, I have to admit I have, because that intro music flipped on my phone. It's a different track from what I wanted to use. But here's
There's that wonderful intro you read to us.
Yes.
Mr. Mack.
And
as we have this narrative leading into the film, so this was directed by Russell McKay.
Yep.
And he was more renowned for being a music video director than anything else.
Yeah.
And because of his music video work, he was aware of a lot of the more cutting edge stuff that was out there that really hadn't been used in film. And one of the great things this movie did, and it still makes it resonate today, is Mulcahy went out and talked to Garrett Brown, who developed the Skycam technology. And that's why there's scenes in this that look like they were filmed by a drone, because essentially they were filmed by a drone. They had a computer-controlled camera that rode on cables, and they could do these long, sweeping, whole wide-angle shots. And it's like the scene you're starting off here, which is supposed to be Madison Square Garden, but was filmed in New Jersey. At the very beginning of the film is it's that great opening shot of how that Skycam technology was used.
Cool.
And
yeah,
then,
I wondered that myself when I saw the shot. I wondered how they'd done it. Are you listening to the Queen soundtrack?
Yeah, the intro to this film always reminds me, in a way, of how they did the entrance to the Flash Gordon film. Obviously, Queen did the theme songs of both films, so it kind of has that kind of, at least in my mind, that tie-in with the Flash Gordon and all that.
That's a good point, actually, because this whole series we've done, the first movie in that series, you could say, is Flash Gordon. We didn't do Flash Gordon, but that was one of the first like fantasy movies of the 80s. And then, Queen did the soundtrack for the last one, which was the last movie of this type in the 80s, which was Highlander. I just want to say hello. Sorry, go ahead.
The Fabulous Freebirds.
yeah. I was saying hello to everybody who got in the chat. So we've got Cosmetti in chat. Hail Cosmetti. And we've got Comic Girl Ava. Hail Ava. Nice to see you both here. And we'll probably get more people coming in the chat in just a moment. This opening scene, the wrestling scene, it was originally supposed to be at a hockey match. Oh, this is what you were talking about, Hooks.
Yeah, this is the Skycam going around, getting these great, highly intense, singular focused motion shots. And then as we come up here, this is a thing that Mulcahy did in this film that's brilliant. And you're going to see a beat of light, and it's going to focus on the eyes. And in this film, the eyes have it. You're going to have a lot of intense draw-ins to the eyes. Yeah, the eyes are always prominent in the scene. And again, that's kind of that music video lighting where there's action going around, but he's isolated. You're going to see a lot of that kind of stuff. And that's just Mulcahy's style, and it really plays well with how this film progresses.
So, Pete, let me ask you a question, buddy. You have Scottish ancestry. A Frenchman playing a Scotsman, cultural appropriation or no?
No more so than a Scotsman playing an Egyptian.
Yeah, exactly. That's the great irony of this. The real Scotsman in this movie is actually playing an Egyptian.
Got some weird
First battle scene, Carl.
Do we know what year it's supposed to be yet in the battle?
Yeah, 1536.
All right, that would have been at the very, very, very dawn of the Highlanders wearing the great kilt. I mean, it would have been very underdeveloped at that point, and not what we see here, which would have been more indicative of the Jacobite period in the early 1600s.
Yep. Jesse Miller.
We see lots of peasant-type weapons. We see some axes and some spears. That's good. You want to see that in a largely clan-based army.
Yeah. I agree with Cosmetti in the chat there. Queen, definitely, the soundtrack does really boost this film.
Bonus points for the courage to dress him in like a 1980s era flasher overcoat.
Yeah, I always thought as well.
Well, it's funny because it's supposedly done so he can hide his sword easily.
Yeah.
And yet there's no evidence that he's holding the blade right now at all. There's no way he could be hiding it.
That was a double entendre as well.
He is.
You get a lot of up from above shots and from below shots in this as well.
Nice cars that are in pretty good condition sitting around in this Madison Square Garden parking lot.
Yeah, one of the things you're going to see, the cinematography in this was done by Jerry Fisher, and Fisher is a master at using low angle and high angle shots to set the scene. And also certain frames of shots follow certain characters as they're introduced and as they continue through the series. So you're going to see a lot of slow draw-ins like that one right there. And then you're going to see a lot of low angle and high angle shots. So,
yeah, exactly. and here he is, Faisal. And these people look like ordinary people, which is the idea that they're living amongst us. So Faisal's sword, Carl.
That is, it looks like a copy of a 16th century Spanish side sword or Italian side sword, which would have been used by, it was not necessarily a military sword, but it was used for gentlemen walking about town for self-defense because there were lots of ruffians about.
I was just gonna say, Carl, sorry to interrupt you. That as they're hitting as the fight starts here, and you see them hitting their blades, they took car batteries and ran the leads up through their coat sleeves and attached them to the swords, and that's how they're getting the sparks. And they could do that like 3 or 4 times, and then the handles would get too hot from the current, so they'd have to break and then film more.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool practical effect that they're able to do it that way. Yeah, the choreography of the sword fighting on the car, awful.
They did that sort of running across the top of cars in Highlander too, as well. I remember.
The thing is Connor McLeod right here is using the katana like a guy who's never used a katana before, because there's a very specific set way you use it, and the way when you take kendo, Japanese sword fighting, there's a very specific way you use it, and he's just using it. He's flailing about like he's using a lightsaber or something here.
Yeah. I also like the way, the character Faisal is also an acrobat as well. But I think we made the point earlier before the show started that there's lots of different fighting styles. All of these different immortals have different fighting styles.
Right, they're drawing on their life experiences, however many hundreds. Yeah, he's an acrobat. You see that?
Yeah. Maybe he was in the circus at some point.
Well, and one of the reasons that the fight choreography is not as good as it really should be is Christopher Lambert has a eye degeneration disease. He's very myopic, and he couldn't wear glasses and he couldn't wear contacts for it. So he was actually injured several times because he can't actually see what's going on.
Yeah, and he almost injured his co-star in the sequel as well. I can't remember the actor's name, but he almost took his teeth out. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, almost took his teeth out at one point in the sequel. So this is a tense moment where he's trying to get the sword back.
Yeah, so this was originally written by a 20-year-old who was in school. He wrote it as a treatment. His professor encouraged him to submit it. It was optioned. And the film you're watching bears almost no recognizable similarity to that story. But he was on set for the whole filming, and as a 20-year-old just kind of stood around slack-jawed as 2 professional screenwriters hacked his story apart. But what they came up with works really well for a film.
Yeah, I would agree. Oh, here we go. This is a bit where Faisal loses his head.
Now, by this point, the police and/or fire department should have arrived, since those fire sprinklers went off a few minutes ago.
Well, if they did, they would see this. luminous bodies. This is all inline animation hooks. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the same kind of stuff we've seen in a lot of the films before this. Conan used it during the resurrection scene. It's nice. It's good work. It's not really mind blowing. It's nothing trend setting.
Yeah. I mean, at the time, I remember, being impressed by it because it was similar to what they had in things like Ghostbusters, this kind of stuff, and blue lightning everywhere.
Yeah, and the whole concept of the quickening they came up with is actually a really interesting concept, and I kind of like that about this film. It's a very original concept, and it's interesting.
Yeah, so I agree, Carl. There's a lot about this film that's really cool, and it's actually what I think makes this film work so well 30 plus years later. It's really the hero's journey. Connor's story is very, very linear. They don't really jump around much in the context of the story, but what they did is they took the individual pieces of the journey and jumbled them up. And so like right now we're well into Act 2, but it's the beginning of the movie and we start with this. And we're using action that we should already know in the context of the story. What's happening. And now and that shot right there where we go from modern New York to now ancient Scotland or old Scotland. You're going to see a lot of that kind of stuff. But so now we're back. Now this is the intro. This is the intro.
This is the actual intro. Yeah.
This is the ordinary world. And you're going to see a lot of these jump cuts where we go from something that you should already have reference for into something where it explains it, and it does it so well.
This is what the director Mulcahy does several times, as you say, in the film, and he was quite good at doing these transitions. So this is Eileen Donnan Castle in Scotland, which is a very famous tourist spot. You can go there if you go to Scotland. Yeah, it's an occupied castle that people live there, but it's a great location, to film on. If you want to know where that is, if you want to go and visit it, it's on the shores of Loch Duel. It was built 12th century by King Alexander II of Scotland. So there you go. So it's a 13th century castle.
What's your opinion on the fact that they're not wearing the proper tartan for the McLeods?
Some of the things are inaccurate, but I think the audience it was intended for weren't going to be checking the authenticity. But I think overall there's some inaccuracies with the costumes and stuff like that. And this actress here, which is I think her name is, where is it here? Celia Imrie is an English actor, and her Scottish accent's terrible. So there you go.
Yeah.
Lambert, we were making the point earlier that I think Hooks mentioned that he didn't speak much English at all when they did this film, but he did have a dialect coach, and they deliberately made him sound like he'd been from lots of different places. But I have to admit his Scottish accent is not the best, but never mind. So we're seeing the lightning here because the quickening started, because MacLeod doesn't realize, but here's Kurgan.
Yes, the Kurgan. I never understood the context. I know he's there to kill Connor, obviously, because he wants his ability and power, but I never understood the context of why he was there looking like he does in the 1500s.
Yeah.
But what
about Kurgan's armor anyway? What do you think?
Establish the villain.
It's utter shite, bro. Utter shite. but it is being worn by the great Clancy Brown right there.
Yeah.
So cool. But no, it's bollocks, brother.
Yeah. So what do you think of the battle here, Carl? The as a reenactor,
they had the Highlanders just going in a absolutely idiotic charge. There was a thing called the Highland Charge, but it was much more organized and just running at each other, all disorganized, and it basically had to do with closing the ground with your enemy as quick as you could, but still maintaining some sort of unit cohesion. And this is obviously not what's going on, but Hollywood always screws that kind of stuff up. So the fighting looks pretty intense. Connor's just walking around aimlessly, like not helping his buddies out and stuff.
Yeah. Well, this is because Kurgan's told everybody in the other clan not to fight him.
Yes.
So what we're seeing is that, Kurgan wants to take out MacLeod before he's able to become strong enough to resist.
So he's hired a rival clan basically to battle against the MacLeods.
That's right, yeah. So for the purpose of killing MacLeod.
Connor's sword itself is not the best, just simply because the hilt is all overbuilt on it and everything. And they do that because they want it to look striking on the screen and they want it to be a central piece.
Yep.
But it's not realistic. You couldn't wield that thing. It'd be 10 pounds trying to swing it around.
Yeah.
But it does look cool.
You were saying, it does look really good.
And this scene is great as an introduction of the villain, too, with the lightning striking behind his back, the horse rearing up, and even Connor says Mother of God.
And he's absolutely terrifying in this role.
Oh, there we go. And a twist. And another twist.
Now, one of the things I do like about this fight sequence is you see you got a lot of... They're clutching and grabbing. They're not just sitting there, fencing with their swords. They close in tight. And, You got guys pushing faces underwater and punching, and doing anything they can. It really gives that feel that it's in tight, and you've got the grueling battle.
Once the battle gets that close, it turns into a melee scrum, basically.
Yeah. And there's the eye again, Hooks. And this is a classic Porsche. If I had the money, that's what I'd buy. I forget which exactly the type of Porsche it is, but I think it's the same one that James Dean had.
Oh wow, yeah. And obviously the takeaway is that he's had 400 years to amass enough wealth to afford all this.
Yeah. So
as he pulled out of the parking garage there, you saw another one of those sweeping shots. And just if you keep your eye out for it, watch for those the highlights of the eyes and then those sweeping shots. And if you start looking for them, you'll see how often they're used.
Yeah. Another thing I noticed in that battle scene we've just witnessed, when he's crouching, bent over because he's been basically stabbed, you've got the low shot again. So you're looking from the ground upwards. And I think that's really effective. So,
right, and here again, he's at the police car. We're focused on the eyes.
Yep.
So now we've got the intro. The hero's been introduced. You've had a little bit of action from the second act. Now we drift back, and now we're back in the introduction, and now we're starting to get the call to adventure. Only in this case, the call to adventure is not a task or a journey. It is something that was bestowed upon the character.
Mm. And here is Eileen Donnan Castle.
It's a beautiful panorama shot right there.
Yeah. It's a beautiful castle. Cosmetti's mentioned in the chat that she's actually visited it.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. So. They do a lot of filming out there. I know they film. Didn't they do some? Wasn't Rob Roy part of that filmed out there as well?
Yeah. Well, there's loads of castles in Scotland that are still. A lot of them are still quite well preserved.
Yeah, Jesse Miller in the chat's asking about in some of the background stuff that the Kurgan is supposed to be from a time before Christ, and in the background mythology, the Kurgan is actually supposedly one of the oldest immortals, and is renowned, and almost everybody has come up against him at some point or another, and very few survive. He's renowned for his brutish and aggressive take. If you go into the expanded universe, I mean, we're trying to just stay focused on this because once you start branching out in the Highlander mythos, it gets ugly fast.
Oh, yeah.
You have to get the second movie for it to get all screwed up. So
don't talk about the second. There was no second. There can only be one.
So here we are. Here we're being introduced to Roxanne Hart.
Yes.
As the Brenda, the forensic pathologist, and she plays her role well. She doesn't have a whole lot of script to work with, but that she does, she handles the character quite well.
And I've got to say, she's rocking that classic 80s look.
The big hair,
yeah. There's that sort of policeman who gets tries to have a go at Connor later on and gets put in his place. There's an actor there that you might recognize in the background, who's been in a lot. Where is he here? John Polito. So here they're talking about the other people one guy's been killed in Jersey, same way. So we're finding out, like Hooks was saying, I think before the show, that there's other events going on that we're not seeing in the film, where there's other immortals being killed.
Right. And also, too, in this, we're going to go back and forth again. We're going to go back from 16th century Scotland to 1980s New York. All the New York shots are going to be dirty, dingy. Society is crumbling. There's a sense of there's not a whole lot of order. When order does show up, it is in force. Like you saw the police that arrived to get Connor. It's everything's an overreaction, both to the extreme and to the negative. And then when you go back, everything is very tranquil in 16th century Scotland. And that contrast plays throughout the movie as a representative of the theme, both between Connor and the Kurgan and then their respective philosophies.
Yeah. There's the look on his eyes now. Now, what? And he intimidates him there. So, because this guy's been around for 500 years, and he's got something in him, this quickening power. There's the low shot again. Another thing I noticed as well with the way they're focusing on Lambert's eyes is before he did this film, he was in Tarzan, Legend of Lord Greystoke, and they used that sort of brutish, staring below your forehead look quite a lot in that film. So I think Lambert's employing that. He learned that in Tarzan, so I think he's making full use of that.
He's got that heavy brow on his forehead.
Yeah.
Kind of has a simian look to himself.
Yeah.
I can see that.
There's the sword again, Carl.
Yep, the side sword.
How do you feel about them labeling that a broadsword, Carl?
It sickens me, and it's a crime against humanity. Possibly a crime of sorts.
No, that's more of like a fencing rapier, isn't it?
No, it's they call it a side sword. It's
okay.
All right, so what it is after the arming sword of the Middle Ages developed into the side sword, which developed into basically the broadsword of the Baskerville broadsword, and it also developed into the rapier in a divergence. But it's basically a gentleman's sword for walking about town and not getting murdered, by thieves and robbers. But it was a status symbol, as a sign of aristocracy or military prowess.
Yeah.
The things which they used to grade society upon.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Long story short,
we had that line as well there, where the policeman's sort of saying, "Your accent's funny. Where are you from?" And he says, "A lot of places." And people probably know that Christopher Lambert.
That's actually a clever way to to hide the fact that his French accent's fucking up his Scottish. No, I think it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's what they're saying is what they're trying to do cleverly is say, well, he's lived in so many different places. He would sound like that. It's quite convincing. You would have a mixed up accent.
Yeah.
And here's the first time we see Kurgan in the modern day world.
And of course, he's like some 80s punk rock butt rocker or something like that. It's funny.
Yep. Well, and it plays on the trope, right? Connor is tried to blend into society in some way and have a respectable name for himself. The Kurgan is still what he was in 16th century. He's just a drifter.
Rocking out the quiet.
And his name is Victor Kruger.
I like it as well when later on in the movie, the scar on his neck, he makes himself look more like a punk, and he puts safety pins through it.
Yeah.
That's a nice touch.
Was this Clancy Brown's first movie? Because it's the first one I remember seeing him in.
I don't think
it's his first one. I think it's his first one of any significance in the role.
Yeah.
And he's one of those character actors that, you see him in all these things and you don't realize till later who he was.
Because he was in Buckaroo Banzai before this, so he was in something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was in some other stuff. Yeah, Buckaroo Banzai. I saw him in this.
I'm sorry, Pete. I got to interrupt you. This is utter crap.
Yes, Carl. Carl, hold forth during the sequence.
Right here. You cannot do this. The structural integrity of that blade would be so weak. I don't care how tight the fittings are and all that stuff. It does not work. This is an atrocious abomination against humanity and against our collective historic, history. Bullshit.
Still looks good, though, in my opinion.
All right, it's cool in sci-fi, but it's not how a sword works. The thing is about the reason I feel so passionate about that sort of thing is because the stuff that's real is so cool in and of itself. You don't need to make up bullshit to make something cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Here we go.
Yes, there we go. Just in time. I'll shut up. Oh, she's all bruised up and stuff. Damn.
Of course you are. Not creepy at all. But Clancy Brown was so much into the character on set and offset that he creeped out everybody apparently during the film, and the everybody, the crew, the other cast members, because he got really into the role. So
well, I mean, that's a relief, because I thought you said he got so. We're going to say he got so into the role he killed 2 hookers.
started beheading people. Yeah, they covered up that well. That's a little known fact. So for those watching, I think I'm at 27 minutes now. What are you at? Yeah,
I'm right with you. We didn't boomer it up.
Cool. So here's McLeod just getting his sword back.
Right.
Yeah. So the character here of Brenda Wyatt, played by Roxanne Hart, the love interest, because the thing about this film is it's not just a like a sword and sorcery film, a fantasy film. It's also a romance as well.
Right. And so she's like a forensic metallurgist or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So sorry, go ahead, Oz.
I was going to say she is a, as we find out later, she's a renowned expert on swords. She's a brilliant forensic investigator, and also a expert metallurgist, which makes her woefully overqualified to be working for the New York Police Department.
Right. Oh, metallurgist, huh?
And she's even got a book. She's a published author as well.
She's not the only metallurgist in this film.
Yeah. This is where Brenda gets a massive drink of brandy.
Yes, and we're going to have to talk about this. Just as Carl had massive problems as the Kurgan assembles his blade, Connor McLeod here is going to do something that is totally out of character for any Scotsman, let alone any Scotch drinker. He's going to order a Glenmorangie on the rocks.
Yeah, Glenmorangie should always be neat.
And not only that, it's served to him in a juice glass. Like it's not. It should be in a tumbler.
Yeah,
it's just the whole set here is just terribly wrong, and there's a lot of mistakes in this film. I'll let go, but this one is tragic. It needs to be cited, and this section of the film probably should just be cut.
Frankly, they need to be called out on their bullshit. So,
there's a nice little joke later on in the film about cognac / brandy. I'll pick it up later when we get to that scene. My favorite drink is Hennessy cognac. So if anybody wants to send me a bottle, you're welcome. Only joking. Or am I? The other thing about this scene is, why would Connor introduce himself to her? But he's interested. It's the romance of the movie.
right.
With these trench coat and sneakers.
Yeah, it's a strange look. He's got the Jerry Seinfeld white sneakers on.
Yeah.
Well, this sequence here, this really shows again. There's the light, but this sequence shows how the decline. I mean, there's graffiti everywhere. The streets are dirty. It's dingy. They never show modern society in a positive, bright light. It's always in grayscale and dark. And then anytime they go to the 16th century, it's the contrast to that. And the same thing's done with Connor and the Kurgan with darkness and light, both in the color of their clothing, with Connor wearing a lighter colored trench coat and the Kurgan wearing black leathers.
Yeah. And so Connor knows that somebody's following him this stage. That's why. And here we are.
Oh.
Now, again, here's during this fight scene, if you watch the shots that predominantly feature Connor versus those that feature the Kurgan, you'll see those low angle and high angle shots that I was talking about.
Yeah.
And that's Mulcahy. He's making a music video.
There's exactly. It looks just like a video, doesn't it? Like a pop video or music video. And the use of smoke and everything, and running down corridors. He did videos for Duran Duran as well, didn't he?
Yes.
A lot of videos. Choreography in this one is much better than the previous one. Previous fight, I mean.
I like a bit of Duran.
I'm not going to comment on that, Pete.
Oh well.
Yeah, so here we also have they're setting the stage here again. This is your hero kind of has to fail a little bit, but there's a lot of suggestion in this sequence to how the film ends. Brenda's just standing there staring. She's not getting involved. She's in shock.
Yeah.
And then the fight, they separate. But some of the suggestion, if you go back, if you're a big fan of this movie and you watch this, and then jump right to the end and watch that end fight.
Yeah.
And they're telegraphing a couple small things that how things have progressed through the film and how people have changed, which is unusual because they usually assume an immortal really wouldn't change that much.
This is Carl's talked about the swords and everything. This is the only bit that really bugs me in the movie, which is there's a police helicopter over them. Hey, stop fighting! Who are you? Blah blah blah, and then it just buggers off.
I think they did that for laughs.
It's like, So here we are back in 1536, Scotland. You're so ruined, Angus.
They're showing the Highlanders as just a bunch of rough savages. Mm-hmm. Which, let's face it, the Highland culture was a little bit more sophisticated than that at the time.
Yeah.
Its own system of nobility and people.
It did, yeah. Clan system. And
yes, he survived. So now they're all in awe of, or in fear of what he may be.
He's in league with Lucifer.
Now, there's James Cosmo there. Brilliant actor playing Angus. And Angus is the one that really wants to protect Connor. He's the only one who really wants to make sure he's okay.
Yeah, he's a great character actor. You'll remember him from Braveheart and everything else.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones.
Well, and this is also they're setting up his true death, right? He died, he came back, but his character has to die. And so this whole sequence is setting up the death of personality.
Yeah. So some differences here in the film from the book. Basically, in the original book, Connor isn't banished from the village; he just leaves. And but the similarity is that his girl or wife to be does abandon him because she thinks he's a monster. But in the original book, there's no Heather.
Yeah, I don't think this film works without Heather.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think that was an excellent addition by the screenwriters. But that scene right there where Dougal punches him, you can see the shock in his face. Yeah. He's just huddled. He's buried his head into Angus, and he's dying. This is his death. Yeah. He's being separated from everything that he's known up to this point. Yeah. And from here on out, he's a totally different character.
And I love this line here where he talks to I'll bloody well walk out of here.
Yeah.
Yep, you bunch of shites. I'll not forget your Angus. Yeah, that's one of the most beautiful castles in Scotland, Eileen Dunham.
No doubt. It's a spot too.
Yeah.
Very these sweeping shots of Scotland are just beautiful.
Yeah.
I like that with the moon right between those two hills.
Yeah, yeah. This is my favorite shot. This from this into the Mona Lisa. That's perfect.
Resolve.
Yeah. I mean, this, Mulcahy, he just has this ability to do fantastic transitions.
But the thing is, if you look at his body of work, this is his best film.
Yeah.
And I think it might be one of those where, everything in his career led up to this culmination of all these techniques. And it was so well received by his peers that it became a crutch. And he starts using it a lot more heavily. Mm. And he doesn't use it with such deftness as he does here. And it's a testament to his skill that this film came out as well as it did.
Shall I point out the obviously two-dimensional backdrops out there?
Oh, yeah.
Those are not matte paintings.
I just have to ignore them. But the rest of it's fantastic.
Nice New York City loft apartment. I'm sure his rent is quite a bit.
So here we're seeing the inner sanctum, which is everything he's acquired over the 500 years he's been alive.
Look at that bulge on the wall right there.
Yeah, we're going to see a battle standard from his original clan. We're going to see an original Old Glory. And because one of the cutscenes is...
There's the eyes.
Yeah. One of the cutscenes, I think he meets Jefferson. And that's a deleted scene which has been lost. Back in Scotland.
Found himself an abandoned tower castle.
Yeah. And here's Heather. I just want to say, hail Heather.
Hail Heather.
Hail Heather.
I think an important message about this film is it's saying, you know, life is fleeting. Enjoy it while you can. And, you know.
So this is also, again, we've broken up the hero's journey. It's very linear, but we're piecing it together slowly. Yeah. So we've had our call to adventure. He doesn't quite understand it yet.
Yeah.
But he's kind of refused it, right? He's not investigating. Yeah. He's investigating Heather, but he's not investigating.
He's investigating Heather.
Yeah.
But he's not investigating why he's alive, why he survived. And that's all about to change.
Yeah.
And he's about to be forced to accept the call, whether he wants to or not.
So there's several deaths he goes through. He goes through a physical death, then he goes through a death of his previous life. Then he's about to go through a death and a rebirth of realization about who he is. And here he is.
And he gets knocked blood.
Who is this? Who wants to say?
All right. So he's chief metallurgist, right, of King Charles V of Spain. Carl, was there a King Charles V of Spain?
No, there was a King Charles I of Spain. King Charles V was a Holy Roman Emperor who was the same person.
Right. So, you know, it's 1986. They couldn't Google anything. But cracking open a textbook and getting that one right doesn't take much work.
He's typically known by Charles V because he was Holy Roman Emperor, which was a bigger office than just King of Spain or, you know, at the time. But, I mean, at the time, the Holy Roman Empire was at its apex under Charles V. Yeah. It included the lands of formerly held by the Aztecs and Montezuma in Mexico. All of Spain's New World Order, all of Spain's New World holdings, Belgium, the Low Countries, large portions of Italy.
Yeah.
So
you can see that. Sorry, Carl.
No, that's it.
So you can see how Ramirez's character is allied himself with the most powerful empire of the day at that particular point. And his costume sort of talks about that as well, isn't it, with the peacock feathers and everything, because he's a very flamboyant character. Couple of quick points about Connery. He was only on the set for a week. So he just bish bash bosh, I'm done.
He actually could only be on set for a week because immediately the day after he left the set, he started filming The Untouchables.
Well, there you go. Wow. There's another point because that's another point because this sort of set up. Sean Connery plays the mentor to a younger man, and he just started doing this over and over again. So he did this with The Untouchables. He did it with Indiana Jones. There was a Kevin Costner movie. The Untouchables. There was a couple of other movies as well. So Connery started becoming the older mentor character from this moment on. This was the first time he did it. So this sort of marked the beginning of his later career.
Right. And so earlier we showed Connor in his inner sanctum. Now we're showing him he's sitting at home sharpening his sword, and he's reading Brenda's book that he's going to call her out on some bullshit on later. But what these are doing, these are quick establishing shots showing his loneliness and he has no interaction with most people in life. He's very solitary. But you also get that's the first great Christopher Lambert laugh, and that's the one thing I love from this movie is you get that
Yeah.
Yeah, does have a dirty laugh. I like it.
Another great transition shot here. Balance. And this is the awful Scottish accent.
Yeah.
Well, this is also we're about ready. We're going to establish a couple of things here. Connor at this point is this whole montage sequence that's coming up. It shows he's brutish. He's slow. He relies on force more than guile. He relies on strength more than thought. And the Ramirez as the mentor is going to guide him out of that. And then that plays in again to that end battle that you're going to see.
Yeah.
So, but
and this is something that was this is something that was sort of repeated with the Matrix with Neo. This is the moment he realizes he's sort of the chosen one, or he realizes he's immortal,
right.
And he's not affected. He's sort of indestructible.
Well, we talked about this with Excalibur too, and really quite a few of the other movies about emerging from water. It's the rebirth. So this is, his personality is dead. Like I think Fedorable mentioned it. He does the triple Lazarus.
Yeah.
This is it's the realization, the rise, and the accept of the call. And this is his first test as he realizes that, I am immortal. I can't die.
The laugh coming up. There you go. He tries to cut the seaweed. There's another thing about this movie which most people have picked up on, over the years is a lot of comedy in this film, and I think the comedy really is so good, so refreshing,
Yeah, it has a good natured comedy to it. It's it doesn't take itself too seriously.
So he's trying to sneak up on Ramirez here.
Yeah, even there, Connery's commenting on it. He's crude and slow.
Yeah, so, and again, we get this really good use of time coming up where we have the training montage. And that's done really well. A lot of these things were established back in the 80s, and some films today in some respects, filmmaking's gone backwards instead of forwards.
Well, that's a whole different discussion. And
yeah, definitely.
We could do an hour on just going through just what we've seen in the series of films we've done, and what modern cinema can take away from them, because even Crawl has a lot of excellent moments. But this whole sequence here, I think this is probably some of the best. It's a real slow zoom in, as Ramirez talks, and it's done so deftly. It just adds some poignance to that little portion of the story.
Yeah.
And Ramirez is one of those characters that, he's had such little time, on screen, but he left such an impact on the film that he was part of. When he eventually, leaves the story in an unexpected way, it seems like it leaves us wanting more of him.
Yeah, and that also adds to the pain of the hero. The hero loses so much in this story, and that's so important to his journey. Connery,
that brings up a good point, Pete. And this is something I kind of came up with when I watched it earlier in the week. And the Kurgan's the bad guy. Yeah. But I think Time is the real villain here, because Time is the opponent that Connor throughout his entire life has not been able to defeat. Everybody around him dies.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just gonna say his life's full of loss. He's never experienced anything other than loss.
Yeah. And not only that, but he's being trained deliberately by Ramirez here, because time is running out for him as well, because someday in the future, definitely he will face the Quickening and he will face the battle for the prize.
Then we get that good laugh again.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, Christopher Lambert, he wouldn't have been my first choice to play a Highlander, but he does have a charisma.
Yeah,
know?
there were other choices. Mel Gibson was also considered, who later on to play in Braveheart. Kevin Costner, I think Swayze and Michael Douglas as well. So there's a few other choices. The chemistry between Connery and Lambert is excellent, though, and apparently they did get on really, really well on set. They had a great friendship, and that's why when the awful sequel I'm not allowed to talk about was made, Lambert insisted that Connery was in it. So
That's cool.
But yeah, you can see the chemistry on screen really does help them make it.
He does have, like I was saying, he does have a good screen presence and kind of a charisma. So
Yeah.
I like what he brings to the role.
Yeah, so the
sorry.
sequence here on the beach, if I could just talk about it for a moment. This is something that I believe was originally more of a tie-in in the original treatment, and how this got left into the screenplay and then not referenced again after this is a little beyond me. But they go through this whole sense of being able to sense an animal, and then it's just left. And it kind of ties into maybe they've got a more of a spiritual connection to the world around them or something, and that ties into how they sense each other, but it really isn't explained. And as far as storytelling goes, it really comes across as like just a fractured piece of something else that remained in the final cut that doesn't belong.
So Edwin the Ace was asking for a timestamp. So we're just gone past the 48-minute mark. I've just put that in the chat. The chat's probably about 5 seconds behind where we are, but we're just past 48 minutes.
Hail Edwin, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, hail Edwin. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that point as well, Hooks. And the other thing, all of those scenes were on the beach. Again, the cinematography, the shots that they chose, the lighting, coloring, and everything just looks so fantastic. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm agreeing with you completely. These Scotland shots are just beautiful. It's amazing.
I never worked out how the sword survived this fall, by the way.
Well, it goes back to one of those things with Hollywood, like Japanese katanas and stuff are supposedly indestructible. They are not.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let me ask you this. I must have missed it. What is Ramirez's motivation for doing this? Because eventually, if he trains him well enough, they might have to face each other for the prize.
Exactly, and this moment comes at the end of this fight, doesn't it? Because McLeod is now trained up as being just as good as Ramirez. I've thought about that. Ramirez's motivation is that he seeks out so it's like light and dark.
Right, and in the mythology that's elaborated on, that there's kind of two sides, and one side looks to be good and prepare everybody so that everybody's on equal footing, and then there's those that look to go out intentionally to take those that have that are novices, that are new to the experience, that aren't trained yet.
So how can I ask you this then? Because I'm not as familiar with the expanded universe. So do they explain how this gene is passed? Because obviously it's got to be some sort of a gene, and obviously it's extremely recessive. But as you're killing people off, new people with this ability are going to be born somewhere in the world, statistically speaking. So what's ever going to get you down to that cycle to where it's only just two guys left?
Yeah, dude, you're reading way too much into it.
Oh, okay.
I think the
they don't really explain it because, I mean, at the end of this film, the gathering is complete and Connor's won, right?
Yeah.
Well, then, and the weird part is, like, it didn't do well here in the States. It did great in Europe.
Yeah.
So they were going to do a sequel, and how do you do a sequel to it? Well, they totally botched the sequel, and then they went back after that and went back to their original core concept and started developing stuff. And there's a lot of retconning that goes on, and a lot of stuff isn't fully explained. But one question I have for anybody in the chat that's as big of a Highlander fan of the expanded universe as me, I've never been able to understand how the Kurgan knew where to find Connor.
Well, the other thing is as well, why doesn't you're about to see how he comes back. Why didn't he just keep coming back? I sort of thought, well, yeah, how did he find him? But secondly, I think once he's trained up by Ramirez, Kurgan decides to go away and hunt down other people who are still novices. So he goes cold on McLeod at that point, but I don't know how he finds him in the first place.
And then also in the expanded universe and even in the sense of the film,
Yeah.
I can't recall any immortal being beheaded prior to their first death.
Yeah.
So what point would it have been? Does Kurgan get anything? And it's little things like that. Again, the original story is actually pretty well done. And the screenwriters were kind of running fast and loose because the production of this film was kind of a mess.
Yes, 2 points there. First of all, the sword call that he's talking about, a 500 BC sword with the same technology as a 1500s Japanese sword.
Mm-hmm.
The point being there that it's, I don't know, it's poetic, but because originally Ramirez wasn't meant to be 2,500 years old, he was meant to be 500 years old in the original book. The other quick point was about what Hooks was saying about how it didn't do that well in the States. The marketing was really bad. The poster was absolute crap. It was like a grainy black and white poster, like just like the trench coat made Lambert look like some sort of rapist sort of character. But in Europe, the posters were fantastic, and it did better there. Much better marketing in Europe. But this is where Ramirez is talking about the difference between if Kurgan wins the prize, the whole world will go into darkness. So this is why it's important that he doesn't, Kurgan doesn't win.
I would like to know. I'd like them to have expanded a little bit more on these ideas because, I mean, what's he going to do? He wins all the power and then he just decides he's going to kill everybody, or what?
I'm not sure. Rain is some sort of evil
Like
overlord, but yeah, they don't expand it that much. Another thing is, where's Connor at this point?
Yeah, that's something. But they also just talked about the Kurgan, and they went through and did a little bit of background on the Kurgan. We of course have to. They were terrible people. They threw babies into pits and made them fight with wolves.
Yeah.
That's all fiction. There were no Kurgan people. He's supposed to be coming from like the steppes of Russia.
Yeah, the closest similarity I had with the Scythians, or some people pronounce it Scythians.
Well,
yeah,
which is interesting because the Scythians were peoples around in the couple thousand years before Christ.
Yeah,
and said that the Irish and the Scottish, the Celts, are descended from Scythians. So it's like,
Here we go. So here's the confrontation between Kurgan and Ramirez.
All right, so the scene where the Kurgan jumps and breaks the table, Connery got really pissed because what was supposed to happen was the table was supposed to, the boards were supposed to break, and the table didn't. The table fractured in half, and a piece of metal almost hit Connery in the face. So there we go. We got the throat cut.
Yep. Now, at this point, Heather should basically run as fast as she can, but she just sticks around.
Well, and it's shocking to me that Ramirez isn't pressing his advantage. He cut the guy's throat. So until that thing heals, his heart rate's going to be elevated, his breathing's going to be elevated, and he's not going to be his fighting best. So.
Right. Well, and the whole movie plays fast and loose with how much pain can they feel, how fast do they heal, do they suffer at all, does it affect their style? But the kind of what my takeaway from it is they all know each other, and while they may not be friends, they all respect each other, and this is an honorable thing. And
there's a code.
You're not going to take advantage. And throughout the film, any immortal that dies, they always take it. Like they could maybe still be fighting back when they're beheaded, but they realize they've been beaten and they just accept it.
Yeah.
So I view it as a lot of honor.
Okay, I can buy that.
Yeah, there's definitely a code. However evil Kurgan is, there are laws which they have to they're bound to. So there must be some. They tried to explain this in the sequel that we won't talk about, but the sequel ended up just messing up the original law. So like Hook said, and there's some things just best left as sort of mystery. There was a flare in the brickwork there. Who knew that?
Well, and all these stones falling, they've got crew members with lines tied to the backs of them, and they only had one shot at filming this, and they're pulling these giant foam blocks out as they're going up the stairs, hitting the swords.
Yeah. So for anybody watching, we're just coming up to 57 minutes. Sorry, go ahead, Carl.
No, just saying. I mean, that tower is awful drafty. They didn't want to pay the window tax, so they took all out of the windows.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, there you go. Stabs Kurgan. Now at this point, he could have pulled it out and just chopped his head off.
Yes. Instead of talking to him.
Yep. So nothing absolutely groundbreaking about this fight up the stairs, but the drama is the fact that everything's fallen apart because of the power of the quickening.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a divisive blow. He's lost the sword, and like Hooks was saying, he's sort of accepting his fate now.
Yep.
Yeah, as Fedorable shares in the chat, remember, kids, double tap first, then do the big speech.
Yep. Yep. Hail Fedorable.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of honor here, and Ramirez knows he's been defeated. He could probably still do something, and it is interesting that he has his hands clasped together as if in prayer.
Yeah,
right.
This is it, which shows Ramirez's character definitely has a belief in because there's a lot of sort of, how would these people cope with feeling, is there a higher power, because they're practically like gods themselves. And because Ramirez is 2,500 years old, the level of quickening that Kurgan's just received there is like a super dose, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, this is some of that humor too. We get that humor as he falls.
Yeah. But to speak to what you're saying there, Pete, the way Ramirez copes with all of this is through faith. I mean, you can also see it even just in that statement of who he worked for, Charles V. Was the Holy Roman Emperor. I mean, this was the predominant Catholic monarch during the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. So this was the guy who was going up against Martin Luther. This is the guy who was going up against and dealing with popes and dealing with Francis I of France, for instance. Not Francis. Was it Francis first? Francis II, something like that. No, sorry, Francis V. Doesn't matter. But anyway, so he's aligning himself with the preeminent Christian king of the time period as well. So I mean, it's just all evident there that there's something to what you're saying.
Yeah. Whereas, sorry, go ahead.
We're back in the modern world. We've had the death of the mentor character. We've had an acceptance of the journey. So now we're well into we're starting Act 2 now in the story process, even though we've already been well into Act 2 in the modern sense. So again, it's how that story was constructed. It's all these individual vignettes are it's perfect stair step through the hero's journey. They've just been rearranged out of order.
Yeah, and of course there's the headline there about the other killings that are happening. The USA, we're watching the 30th year anniversary version here, which was the European version, which later became the director's cut, which later became the version everybody watches now. The original USA cut was 8 minutes shorter, and it didn't have the backstory for Rachel. So we're about to see Rachel's backstory, which was just cut for some reason in the American version. And I think it's quite important because, it shows the character of Connor. And it's got a great laugh. Another one of the great laughs. Hey, you're the master race. Taka, taka, taka.
Yeah, here he is.
Yeah. So this is
What is his role here? Is he a soldier of some sort?
Yeah. So we assume that, you know, we don't know whether Rachel's Jewish or not. We just assume she's a, you know, she's on the run from the Germans, and this is where a touching moment where Connor rescues her.
Well, and again, the eyes, you know,
Yeah.
her face is filthy, but she has these wide whites of her eyes showing.
Right.
And Kuzmeti mentions that that's such a weird transition. It is. We're getting to kind of a part in the film where it gets a little clunky. There's some really strange transitions and just not. Again, it's almost like there's three films. There's the beginning intro until Brenda comes into the antique shop, and now we're going to go through like 20 minutes where it just doesn't feel right, and then the ending, it brings it all together and it looks great. But this little 20 minutes, it's like 15 to 20 minutes, it just doesn't feel right. And I don't know if it's the way it was edited or if Mulcahy just lost money because they ran out of time. They had a bunch of production issues, so it could be this is just kind of filler that they just cut in when it was meant for.
But we wouldn't have that line though, would we? That line of whatever you say, Jack, you're the master race. That is a great line. I love that shot there as well.
So now she's like the his personal assistant running his importation business.
Yeah, obviously she's in her 40s or 50s now, and the relationship he has with Rachel, and I think for me it's important that character is there because it shows his regard for the human race. You know, Connor actually, despite how he's been treated by other people over the years, he has a love for humanity. You know, he wants to preserve humanity.
True.
Right, go ahead, Carl.
No, I was just going to say that I was just going to counter on to his point that he does come across as very human and very compassionate in his dealings with just regular people.
Yeah,
right. As opposed to Kurgan, who is brutish and as he views them as nothing other than playthings. Now, take note of the gun and what drawer it goes into.
Right.
And also, I would like to point
that.
out before we, as the scene progresses, that was a 38 service weapon that she put in the drawer.
So it's not a 45.
It's not a 45.
Okay.
Those sabers on the wall to the side are Indian sabers from the Mughal period, 1700s, Islamic kingdom in northwestern India.
Okay.
Yeah, Miller was asking in the chat if we think some of that's done on purpose to make you get the impression that there's unease that the characters are going through, like a little bit, but I think a lot of it. Try not to read into bad filmmaking and bad edits too much.
Well, I didn't pick up on that, but what I did pick up is the brandy moment coming up because it's my personal favorite Hennessy, I have to say, and don't bother sending me bottles. But Brenda's character, that's her drink of preference, and you see a bottle on the side. It's just a standard bottle of VSOP on the side there, right? And rather than pour that out, Connor's brought this bottle with him, and just wait until he opens the bottle, and you'll see why. So this is the wrong drawer, is it? Yeah, I never noticed that.
Yes.
How did the gun move?
I don't know. There's another immortal in there.
Good catch.
But
she's my kind of girl, man. She's got swords on the wall, and I'm into it. I dig it.
Yeah,
as Doug would say, my people.
Yeah, I like the way that the character of Nash, though, was because he's so old, he knows all the tricks in the book. You know, so.
Well, I like too. He's just got this, like he just did there with his coat. He doesn't hang his coat up. He just kind of throws it over a chair.
Yeah,
it's like at the same time that he's got this wry look on life. Yeah. He also just kind of has an ease that he floats through it.
And here we go. This is, rather than just have an ordinary glass of cognac, there's one of the first ever bottles of Hennessy cognac.
That's a nice touch. That's a nice touch.
I love that. Yeah. And then he does
this sequence is interesting too.
Yeah.
So we can have a toast. Okay. We haven't toasted yet. I'm still drink. I'm gonna drink.
And this is the speech. 1783.
Wow, that's old. That dialogue writing.
Yeah. Yep. And then Montgolfier. And you'll like this bit coming up, Hooks. And
there you go.
1783. So, I mean, the fact that he would save a bottle of cognac, you know, for 200 years just for this moment.
He must be really thirsty.
Yeah. And Hooks, we've got the moment with the book here, haven't we?
Yep. Yeah, this is great because watch. If you look in the mirror too, he's looking at himself. She's looking at the book now, and he's still looking at himself. So again, it's the eyes are real interesting here.
Yeah. So we're coming up to 1 hour, 7 minutes, 45. Couple of things about Lambert. He was actually born on Long Island. So he was actually born in America. But his dad was a diplomat. But shortly after he was born, he was taken over back to Switzerland. So just to let you know. But this is where the character of Brenda is really just interested in the swords, just not really interested in anything else but her own sort of curiosity.
So she's interested in McLeod's blade, is what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't say that, did I?
Hey, Pete. Yeah. Hey, Pete.
Well, oh, man. Yeah, that's it. As Edwin says in the chat, it's the cream overcoat he wears. It gets all the ladies.
Yeah, I don't know who told him to wear that blazer with those pants, but
yeah,
put the overcoat back on.
Yeah, that's a good point Fed makes as well, talking about, you know, all through the years, dozens and countless people that you've known who have died and been buried. And that explains why he's become a recluse, because he just can't handle, he's detached now, he can't handle the pain. And this is my favorite sequence in the whole movie, which is the, you know, as Heather gets old and he doesn't, and he ends up losing her because she inevitably dies when she grows old. And for me, this really speaks about how important it is to make the most of your life, because you're only on this earth once.
Yep.
Yeah, this is
it's a powerful sequence for sure.
It is, and as the song's playing,
yeah,
you know, that "Who Wants to Live Forever." This is a music video.
Yeah.
And again, this is Mulaney's background, and it's done. That's I think why it's the most emotionally powerful moment of the film.
Yeah,
and I think it's because it ties directly into the director's strengths, and he executed his cinematographer so well on it.
Yeah.
And this whole sequence here and how he builds a little tension. It's like McLeod runs back, and like, oh my, where's Heather? And then she comes up, and you get the shock.
Yeah. And this is it. You know, life is fleeting. Make the most of it while you're here. And I don't know exactly where this shot was taken, but you know, as we all know, it's breathtaking up there in the Highlands, and here she comes.
Well, I love that too with the matching of the scene as she rises up in sight, and you get the "Who dares to love forever?"
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When must love die?
And I think it also points to the fact that when people die, you don't forget them. They're still, the reason we're heartbroken is because that connection's still there. You know,
I've got something in my eye, brothers. Just a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This scene really tears me up every single time I watch it.
Now, when you go through the quickening once or twice, does it sterilize you or something? Because you think they'd have some kids by this point.
No, by the very nature that they are immortal, they're not allowed to have kids. And Ramirez explains that to them when they're in the village.
Oh,
He tells them that you have to walk away from her. You have to let her go.
Yeah.
And this is, I don't know. I'm torn on this. I think there's some very powerful stuff going on here, and I think you could probably call this the last death of what remains of Connor McLeod. There's still vestiges, right? I mean, he met Heather before he met Ramirez and knew who he was and knew what he was. Yeah. But he chose to stay with her despite knowing all that. Mm-hmm. And this, when she dies here, and I think it's very symbolic when he places the sword in the ground. I think that's when it's the change happens, and he's no longer Connor McLeod of Clan McLeod. He's Connor McLeod, the immortal.
Yeah, he leaves Scotland after this, I think, begins his journey across the world. And this is fantastic, this bit where he talks about where they are. And and describes the scene to her.
And then
and now he's carrying her body up the hill. Every time this gets me.
Yeah.
Every time.
I'm with you, brother.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's
gone. Power through it. Have a drink, boys. Have a drink.
Yeah. I need to go and quickly get a beer. Can you hold the fort for a second?
We'll hold the fort, buddy.
Cheers.
What do you have tonight, Aldous?
I think I need a whiskey after that.
I'm drinking a local to my region, New England IPA.
Oh, nice. So at the local CVS, the Captain Morgan's spiced rum's been on sale. So Mrs. Hung has picked me up some Captain Morgan watermelon smash, and this is like candy going down.
Yeah, so now here we get this great play where he's on the bridge again. Connor's kind of doing the Ramirez thing. He's got friends. The Kurgan has no friends. They're
right.
And then it's this great camaraderie that you get that you don't. I mean, he's smiling and laughing, and you don't get that. He's always serious with everybody else.
What do you think? What do you think, though? The end game really is for those guys, though, right? I mean, eventually, like they have to face each other. You know, is it going to be like that, or are they going to be like, you know, you go hang out over there, I'll go hang out over here. It'll be cool.
Yeah.
Live your life, I'll live mine.
Because Matty makes a good point. Have you mentioned it? What about all the animals that he leaves behind? This is my favorite scene, second to the one we've just seen, which is the duel on Boston Common. Fantastically funny. I love it.
Yes. That's a great scene. Yes.
We're back to 1783 again. The year of
the duel. Yeah. Yeah, and as you were saying, they all know each other. They all know each other's history. They all know where each other's exploits have been and the high points of their lives. So it's like
this is great. Bassett sticks him about 20 times. It's just fantastic. And he's groveling sycophantic servant kissing them all over. Oh, wow.
Well, and this plays to the, like what you were talking about. There's this super serious primary storyline. And again, it's interspersed with these beautiful humorous moments.
I've just realized something as well about this. You've got an immortal swordsman in a sword fight he's not actually fighting at all. If he wanted to, he could destroy Bassett, but he's just not bothered.
Well, he's also drunk.
Yeah.
By any rules of gentlemanly conduct of the time, upon first blood, satisfaction would have been had. But that's all right. This is funny as hell.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Edwin in the chat brings up a great point.
Yeah.
After the emotional powerfulness of Heather's death, to put this ridiculous of a joyous reunion with a friend, and then the ridiculous nature of just how they live their lives. I mean, he's drunk, he's causing problems.
Yeah. And
that's
why this movie survives, because it's it's a really well made movie for that kind of thing. It's so well balanced, you know. And I love this scene here, the angle of the camera and the way it pans around the corridors of this horrible hotel.
Yep, this is the Skycam, and it's positioned in front on a trolley, and it's holding focus as it moves through. So that's why you get the fluidness.
Yeah.
And then again, it's Kurgan, so we've got that nice low angle shot that's shooting up. Clancy Brown's a fairly tall man, but this gives the impression that he's even bigger and taller and stronger than he is by that low angle shot.
Is that Art T-Bear on the right? Hey, Artie. I didn't know you were in this movie.
Artie back in his punk rock days right there, right?
If you look at the stack of books right there on the desk, Oodles of Doodles is actually right there.
Just on the left. Oh, man. So, I don't know. Is this like a standard stereotypical gun nut we've got now? These trans are.
This is my favorite character in the whole movie. This is like, that's the 80s right there. My stepsister had a Trans Am IROC. Yeah. She's 10 years older than me. So when I was like 10 years old in 1987, I thought she was just the coolest damn person in the world driving that IROC around.
Yeah. And here we go. So no sooner have we seen that scene between Connor.
This guy's like the Punisher. He's the Punisher.
Yeah. Okay, Marine. This is for real. Yeah. Edwin's asking about Queen. Well, Freddie Mercury died quite a few years ago. So, but they still do tribute performances. I think they're doing a movie about Freddie Mercury's life as well. So this scene here between Kurgan and there we go. The heads come off. This is the last other immortal to be killed. It's now just Kurgan and Connor. Is that an Uzi? An Uzi 9mm.
Yeah, and in true Hollywood fashion, they get bullet entry wounds all wrong.
Yeah.
But you got to have the squib explode outward towards the camera, otherwise it wouldn't look right. So,
the Mac 10, I think, not an Uzi.
Is it? I thought it was an Uzi when he grabbed it.
I can't tell. I have to see a good shot of it. Oh, that's an Uzi. You're right. You're right. Yeah. That was like the ubiquity. That was like the cool gun of the 80s, wasn't it? Everyone had one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to date myself a little bit. I had the Enertech, if you know who Enertech was, Uzi squirt gun.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That man, if you tried to sell that in a toy shop today, half the country would flip out because it was black and looked real.
So this is inline special effects again, because it's basically just using wires to raise the body.
And actually, if you watch this, the wires are visible in a couple of cuts
right
of it.
At the end, yeah. Right, the scene right at the end.
So this was also filmed in an alleyway in England between two old Victorian buildings. Oh. And they were paranoid that they were actually going to blow out the glass until they were told of all these windows and these buildings, until they were told, yeah, go right ahead. We're tearing them down anyway. So they went above and beyond with some of the special effects, and some of the glass you see blowing out actually is real glass.
Yeah, that's typical. There's loads of those warehouses down by the Thames. I never sort of realized that, because a lot of New York and Boston looks like London, you know, back streets and that. It's very similar.
Yeah, and for going back to what was said, where it just feels a little off with the transitions, Kuzmeti. After this car sequence that's going to come up, we go back into a lot better of a cut movie. It's just, this is towards the end of that middle sequence that just kind of feels off, and how it's cut. And again, we got that low angle shot of them running away.
Another comedy moment coming up here.
Yeah.
Okay, now I would like to point out that the car's roof was peeled back on the driver's side.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Daddy, help me!
Oh, what happened?
McDonald's product placement there. How did she end up on the bonnet? Hood,
Now we're back
sorry,
to
hood.
side. And then we have a quick cut into the police station. But again, here's that great the cam shot we're following. We're tracking behind and in front. There's so much good, and then there's that little section in the middle that just seems it's like there's two movies.
Yeah. This is where they think he's completely nuts. When he starts telling them what he's witnessed. But it's like, I mean, going back to what we're saying about this movie breaking up time and flashbacks, same sort of time as Terminator. Terminator did the same sort of thing. And again, you know, the policeman in Terminator thought that the people talking about different stuff that was happening, they thought they were nuts as well. So there's some similarities between the two movies.
Yeah, and on this little flaws that all this is talking about, they're major enough you can notice them, but I think they're minor enough that doesn't take away in general from the overall movie.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody's been following our series, like if I'm getting down to what drawer the gun went in and what side the car's top was ripped off, like this movie is good. I'm not ranting about lighting and how long we're in scenes. The dialogue is delivered well.
Yeah.
The camera work is phenomenal.
I love that.
The sets are awesome. The writing, they're just little things. It's our commentary. We got to talk about something, and it's fun because I love this film, and I'm coming at it from a position of love. I'm not trying to tear it down.
I like the way it goes silent just to make him look extra nuts.
Yeah.
And they're going, back off slowly.
Yeah. He's a pretty tough guy. He survived a pretty serious wound there. I mean, you could survive a wound like that to your guts as long as you had immediate attention. So
yeah, and maybe it's a throwback to early in the movie because we saw Connor lying there with a stomach wound in the same way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so right there we have Headhunter 3, Cops 0. And Pete, you want to talk a little bit about why there's 3 when we've only seen 2 decapitations?
Yes, because there are deleted scenes which have been destroyed. There was a warehouse fire that destroyed them, so unfortunately we don't have them now. But there was a scene with a character called Young Doll Kim, who was hiding from society as a security guard in a corporate IT department. His fighting style was 2 swords. So they did a whole fight scene between him and Kurgan. Kurgan kills him, which is what we've just seen in the paper there. But that was removed from the film, and unfortunately, we will never see it because that film has been destroyed. But it just shows how these people are hidden in everyday places, living everyday lives, like it says at the start, secret lives. And another interesting, they've all got different fighting styles.
They're all from different places, so they have all developed their own martial arts or taken things from different experiences and used what works.
Yeah. I think the film's the poorer for it. I think they could have easily fitted in like, you know, a 2 or 3 minute sequence with that character and that fight scene. But, you know, this is where the character of Brenda is finding out more and more about the fact that Nash isn't really Nash. he's really Connor McLeod, and he's really 500 years old. We'll have that sort of classic pseudo computer technology moment come up, which you had in so many different 1980s movies. Where they go beep 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 and flash and go up and down and doo, 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 and match. None of that would have happened in a 1980s PC.
Yeah. It's one of those, computers, show me computers moments.
Yeah.
Whereas now it wouldn't be a big deal.
And I don't know whether anybody does anybody over there watch Red Dwarf?
Yeah. I love Red Dwarf.
I thought you did. Now, for some reason, this character on the right, the guy wearing the glasses, really reminds me of Chris Barry, who played Rimmer in Red Dwarf.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, Smeghead, Chris Barry. He does. He looks like Chris Barry with a mustache.
Yeah.
Chris Barry makes that show 100%.
Oh yeah, definitely. So there you go. So we've proved the method is using to hide from generation to generation.
McLeod likes the strawberry blondes, doesn't he?
He does. He has a particular.
He's got a type. He's got an archetype he goes for.
Well, and it does tell you a lot too about McLeod that he listened to Ramirez and he tried to blend in, but at no point did he ever consider like every 50 to 100 years changing his handwriting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or changing where he lives.
Right now, this is I love the dialogue of this upcoming sequence. This is really well written dialogue.
Here's the tearjerker right here.
Yeah, lighting a candle for Heather.
Which he's probably done every week for the past 400 years.
Yep. Yeah, happy birthday to Heather. And you get the idea that he's talking to all of these. The only people he really knows now are dead. And so he's living a very, very lonely life.
Yeah, well, even more so lonely. I mean, even his immortal friends are gone. It's just him and the Kurgan.
That's it.
You'd think that if you had immortal friends and you knew this guy was out there, right?
Yeah.
You would form some sort of like a mutual defense association and like, I don't know, cohabitate with a couple of these dudes that you could help take this guy down after you.
And that's where the expanded universe goes that every fight is to be a one-on-one fight.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. I mean, in the TV series, there's a lot of different ideas explored along those lines. But yeah, this dialogue's excellent. We can see he's got those safety pins in now. His knife cut across his neck.
Too, as a throwback to the first time you see him, if you look on the side of his head, he's got kind of that helmet that he was wearing tattooed there.
Yeah.
But I love that line.
Yeah.
I am disguise.
So, the other thing is they can't fight on holy ground, correct?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it's sanctuary.
Cheeky bastard. Now, those nuns are from a particular French order of nuns that I don't know have worn that sort of a habit in 150 years, but interesting to see it.
Yeah, they're really big hats, aren't they?
Yeah, they had some props left over from the flying nun from the 60s, I guess.
Yeah. And this is the horrible bit where Connor realizes that Heather, was raped by Kurgan, and Heather never told him.
Yeah, the eyes again.
Mm.
And Clancy Brown, he gets the credit now for this role, but at the time he did not nearly get the credit that he should have for how much energy he pours into the Kurgan. I mean, the Kurgan is just he is just despicable in every level.
Yeah, definitely.
He's disgusting. He's vile. He's crass and he's blasphemous.
Right, but it's what's important is everything you just said is true, but yet Connor is ready to fight him then and there, and he's the one that reminds him of the rules, which shows that despite all of that, even the Kurgan has honor to respect the rules. Holy ground, Highlander.
You do that too well, Hooks. You're not from the plainlands of Central Asia, are you?
Of course I am.
Well, so if you're Kurgan and I'm McLeod, then we're going to have to meet up in New York.
So what do you do? What do you do if you're Connor? Do you say, just meet me here and let's get this thing over with? I've had enough of this. The 500 years of this, I just can't take it anymore. Or do you try and eke out a little more of an existence somewhere else?
Yeah.
Well, that's what he said, is I'll be outside.
Yeah.
And I love this line too.
Yeah,
where he goes,
this is it.
Of course he cares. He died for our sins. That should be his undoing.
Yeah, that's it. And the best line's yet to come up when he leaves the, when he leaves the church. I'm saying that one. I've got dibs on that one.
Coming up.
I've got dibs on that one.
That licking of the priest's hand.
Yeah.
It's just, it's just
vile.
Revulsion.
Yeah.
Vile. It's just.
Yep. And then he turns around. I've got something to say. Better to burn out than to fade away.
But I know Clancy Brown didn't ask me anything on Reddit where he talked about the film, and he was an up and coming actor, and he really didn't feel that he could, he pushed a lot. He talked a lot with Wyden, the original author of the novel, and because he wanted more of the character that Wyden produced, but he ended up with what the script writers were giving him. And at a certain point, he just said he was just going to have fun. And it is so evident that he just embraces what he's given and takes it for a ride and enjoys it, because that whole sequence right there, I think that shows it the best. It's just some amazing acting and some great exchange between the two of them.
Yeah. Jesse says he's despicable and he revels in it with great joy. That's absolutely correct. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's the confidence of knowing none of these people can do anything to you, and they are less than insects.
There's the standard from the Clan MacLeod on the left. So this is where he takes his girl Brenda to his inner sanctum and shows her everything he's acquired over the hundreds of years he's been alive.
But I love the camera work in this sequence too. It's the shot down. Like now we're shooting from the high angle, and then notice the shadow during that rotation sequence.
Yeah. There's Ramirez's clothes and behind him there.
Oh, yeah. Now, are these all trophies he's taken from defeated foes?
There could be, yeah. But definitely things. There's his clan, not Taunton, Sporran on the wall there.
Right.
Sporran. They're in the background as well.
Oh, yeah, Ramirez's hat and his double.
Yeah, I never noticed that in watching this for 30 years.
I've got a good eye for Sporrans, laddie. I love that line. I never thought how this was a proof that he was immortal, because even a normal person stabbed wouldn't die straight away. How's
I think it's more the fact that he gets stabbed in the liver and there isn't, copious amount of blood spilling all over the floor.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that, because that's always bugged me. This never made sense to me, this bit.
Well, I think it's like a lot of things in this movie. Don't deep think it. Just go with the story, because the story was so good.
Yeah.
I think they kind of just gloss over some stuff, and it's like, okay, we'll just go with it.
Yeah.
Because
Brenda's really turned on by stabbing people as well.
Absolutely.
He turns around.
And there is for anybody that is closely following the RBCC and wants to avoid any Blue Dolphin moments, a Blue Dolphin moment is quickly approaching.
Yeah, there's full Blue Dolphin now. Because
I do have an interesting tidbit on this. William Panzer in one, who's the producer in one of the director's cuts,
Yeah.
talked about that they initially filmed the copulation sequence.
Yeah.
And they had some problems, and they had to refilm it. And both the actor and the actress were quite willing to refilm it and had no problem. So,
yeah. Fine. And was that intentional when you said titbit?
oh, did I? Oh, was that
Freudian?
Hello.
Hello.
So
lady.
this is another scene in it that bothers me, that just, or there's slight continuity issues, because you'll notice as they're talking and Connor is now fully focused, we have the Kurgan emerge, and it's beautiful. He's completely in shadow, but there's no doubt who it is. Now, up to this point, they've always been able to feel each other. So how does Connor not feel he's there?
Yeah.
Is it because he's so focused on Brenda?
Yeah. At the moment where he's should be most focused on the fact that it's just him and Kurgan now, he's now completely distracted by the romance he has with Brenda. And now Kurgan knows that Connor has a weak spot that he can exploit.
Yeah, but notice that when she walked away, he immediately felt the Kurgan behind him and checked behind his back. So I think that's what it is.
Here's another. Why does she run into her apartment? Why would you not run away? And much like Tim Doyle, I would like to point out that the bad guy is eating a fudgesicle.
Yeah, that's it. And then she just stands there as if, nothing's going to happen. And
this is a beautiful shot with a red hue.
Yeah. And the music you're hearing is Queen again. And this is the one that got away. This has not been released ever. And it's their cover version of New York, New York. It's a really good cover version of New York. And but it was never released. It's only on this movie.
So now we are fully into Act 3. We have embraced it. We're setting up the final confrontation. And here it's like, I don't know the order of sequence that it was filmed, but I tend to, based off of my viewing of this, I think this is towards the end when Clancy really has his hands around the throat of the character and really understands it, because he just is on an absolute joyride with not just Brenda, but you as the audience, and how he throws himself into the sequence.
Yeah. Yeah. This is great. I love this scene. It's the comedy again.
Well, and just the theme you're talking about, Pete, is live your life like it's your last day, and the Kurgan lives his life like it's the last day. He just does whatever the hell comes to his mind, whatever him takes him.
And here he is randomly mowing down pedestrians, and
well, the violence there is so stylized. You don't see a dummy car. It's just these quick still shots.
Yeah.
It's again very music video-y, and again, this is a powerful sequence. It's got music playing over it. It's a music video,
and it shows as well how like Kurgan just views life as completely meaningless and valueless, because nothing can kill him. So if you can't be killed, then how can you value life if there's no risk of losing it?
Absolutely.
It's screaming and everything. It's funny as out. Oh, and then there's a biker gets it as well.
Sing along.
New York, New York. Oh, this is great. This take you there.
All right, so the sign says Silver Cup Studios.
Yes. Any significance to that, Hooks?
Well, later when it doesn't say that, it's kind of interesting.
Okay.
But no, so I mean, this is just, I love this intro. This is this movie, like, this is just such a great, we're building to the climax, and we're definitively entering the third act.
Yeah,
it's just so well done.
Yeah, I was entranced by that whole sequence there. I didn't say a damn thing. I was just watching him go.
Yeah.
In the very 1980s answering machine.
Yeah, I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting. The killing's driving him mad. But
Well, now we're foregoing the trench coat now because we mean business.
Why didn't he wear this from the start? You know, that's much better.
So in contrast to how the Kurgan puts his sword together, the way that Connor just put the blade into the hilt of his Japanese katana is actually accurate. They are made to come apart like that, where you pop one or two pins out, and the blade will slide out, and they do that for cleaning and storage purposes. So that is an accurate depiction of how swords can be put together and taken apart.
Really? Wow, I thought that I assumed that was just like a quick bolt for a prop. That was actually accurate.
No. Yeah, no. What they do is the kind of hilt he has them right there. I forget the Japanese pronunciation, but it's a specific style of hilt for war. And when you store them, you know the ones where you see where they're like the wooden scabbard and the wooden hilt on it with no suba or guard. Those ones are for storage. So when you're done with war, you return the blade, because the blade is the important part. The hilt and the furniture that are associated with it are disposable. They're as disposable as you know, maybe a butane canister for your cigarette lighter. And so the blade is what's important. So the blade gets taken out of the war hilt and put into the storage hilt, whereupon it's kept upon your mantle or wherever you keep it. So and they do come apart. Just you pop the pin out. They have a special tool for it. Pop a couple pins out and just slide it out.
Yeah.
So where's the studios?
So here.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Here we've just seen Sheila Gish, who played Rachel, crying there as he left because she knows that he's never going to return, as Hook said, and as Carl was talking earlier about, you know, the way he sort of keeps himself detached. This is the last death for him. He's not going to go back to that place anymore. He's never going to be Russell Nash again, whatever happens. And she knows Rachel knows she'll never see him again.
Now, the one complaint I do have about his sword is that it's from the period that the hilt would have been made out of ivory, which would be probably a little bit not good to hold up to the extreme combat it's seeing. But here we are, our final climatic battle above the city.
Yeah, and this is it's an excellently filmed fight sequence.
Yeah.
But not a big fan of the choreography on the fighting. Yeah. These guys are thousands of years old and they're fighting like hacks, man.
Yeah. Edwin says the trench coat is classic, the jacket is badass. I agree. It's a badass jacket. And Kuzmeti says that's an incredibly painful way to have your arms tied up.
Yes, I can imagine. As far as the leather bomber jacket with the white tennis shoes look goes, that look was best done by Roddy Piper and They Live.
Well, Connor's here to kick some Kurgan ass and chew bubblegum, and he's all out of bubblegum.
That's right.
Right. What's this saying then? Silvarsea? Oh no. I'm waiting to see it there. This reminds me of some sort of
Pete. It says when they were driving across the river, it was Silver Cup Studios. There's no studios. It's just Silver Cup.
Oh, right, okay.
The Silver Cup Studios is an actual billboard at the time. This is a sound stage, and they didn't put studios on the soundstage board.
Yeah.
Continuity.
This entire sequence on the roof is very well done. Again, the lighting is phenomenal. It's got the music video feel. There's a lot of little mistakes, but it's done really well. And again, I want you to go back over an hour ago, the first time the Kurgan jumps Connor in New York. The reactions, how they fought, how Connor fought, and what Brenda did.
Yeah.
And then keep that in mind as you're watching this, because
this
is what Mulhaney and Fisher did really well, is they telegraphed a lot of things.
Things that are going to happen. Another thing is, well, this is the same soundstage they used to make the video. The Queen video for I think it wasn't It's a Kind of Magic. I think it was Heroes of the Universe. They used the same sound set to actually film the pop video because they had that in the background on the video. Now, even my wife, when I was watching the movie, said, her screams are really annoying me. She has a really annoying scream.
Yeah, Miller says that it's Silver Cup Studios in New York. Yeah, that's the shot they use to establish where they're at. But then a lot of this is done with matte paintings, and it's all studio work.
Yeah.
Why are they fighting in knee-deep water on a roof?
Because the water tower's just burst.
It's an action set piece. And okay, Carl, a flat roof right now, as soon as they jump through the skylight and they land,
there's no water come through.
There's no water, and it's an angular roof. Explain that. See the angles?
Yes. Yes.
But okay. This is I love the lighting. This movie's great in so many ways, but now it just got ratcheted up of like 7 different levels. Yeah. Because this is the culmination sequence. Mulaney, it's that music video thing, man. Yeah. You got these windows with this light from the city spilling in. It's silhouette fighting. The only time anybody gets spotlit, it's on their face. Yep. It's just so well done. Yep. And the sword fighting is so bad.
And the fact that you have no soundtrack for this particular moment, it's just the fight.
I think the fight sequence is going good right now. They're grappling and they're fighting. They're gripping each other's blades and kicking each other. That's what you do.
So Brenda gets involved, and he gets that. And then we've got the moment.
And this is the point where Connor just everything comes together. He's now focused.
Right. And there's that laugh again. What took you so long? I love it. And then we go into, now we're at the final climactic moment. We're at the pinnacle of the journey. Connor's, and everything has been going to this. It's the apotheosis moment for Connor, for Kurgan. Everything comes down to this. Only one of them is going to walk away.
The big boss moment. End of the game.
And again, we get those these transitionary motion shots.
Yeah.
Silhouette, limited light, but man, that filter through those glass is just beautiful.
Yeah, being lit by silhouette is nice.
Sparks off the blade. There was a Commodore 64 game with this fight scene in it. It was a Highlander game, and this was the final battle at the end of the game. Surprisingly.
And a salute right there.
There you go. So he starts by cutting him a few times there. Wind noises. I love the way they do the final special effect here, right at the end. That is one of them, like, really sticks in your mind, that last scene where at the end of the fight.
Carl can correct me, but I believe the stance that Connor's in is correct for the katana, is it not?
No.
No?
It's correct for Hollywood.
I thought I had read an article where it talked about that was actually a reference to a fighting style.
Here we go.
Maybe in like Chinese sword fighting. I haven't seen too much about that. Yeah.
This scene is just so well done. This shot. Look at
the hand.
Brilliant. And he's laughing.
And then it falls.
And now the final moment. All of the quickening that he's taken over the hundreds and thousands of years. And now the line.
Oh, this is just chills, man.
And more glass exploding.
Yeah. So this is the culmination. We've been seeing it build up this entire time.
These things flying around him. Is this what the quickening is, or are these things trying to stop him from getting the prize, or what?
I took it as like the souls of all the other immortals, right? It's
right.
The essence of what the quickening is these are pieces of what they are. They're not human, right?
Yeah.
He's becoming human.
Yeah. Yeah, because I always wondered what these monsters were. And you can see the wires, sorry.
Yep. Yeah, there you go, right there.
And there's all the sort of, that's sort of the way you see the eye over and over again is like all the different lifetimes he would have had to have lived this long. There we go. Now he's got the prize. And he's got the prize of his woman, partner.
Chief metallurgist.
Yep.
sword expert.
Did you notice she started wearing that jacket with the tartan after they got together?
Oh,
just to show you that we're in modern day, there's a tornado just gone by. And a jaguar. A jag. So Highlander drives a jag.
All right, Miller is asking about the dark quickening, and I'm a little familiar with that from the Highlander series and the expanded stuff. I don't really want to get into it because it doesn't involve the film itself.
Yeah.
Miller, that'd be a great topic sometime for your show. I'd love to chat with you about it.
Yeah. And so we began the film with, the monologue from Connery. We're ending it with another monologue from Connery. And all the best scenes there, going all the way back to where everything started. So there's the symmetry, back to where it all started. And, that wraps it up perfectly. And that's where it should have ended. Never another movie should have been made after that.
Well, this is one of the few movies where it really would have actually made sense to do prequels.
Yeah, that's the way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a world of stories they could have told.
Even though you knew that, and you could have brought Clancy Brown back. And because there's nothing to suggest that Connor and the Kurgan hadn't, mixed it up a couple of times.
Yeah.
So you could have done a couple films from World War II or World War I period pieces. You could have done stuff in the 60s. You could have done stuff in the 1880s as westerns. I mean, how awesome would it be to have a guy walking around with a katana and a 6-gun in Dodge City with an immortal sword fight, and then you tie in like some historical characters.
Yeah,
and that's where I thought that even the series lost out on a lot, because why did during the French Revolution, why were they cutting people's heads off with guillotines? Well, maybe they figured out that there were some immortals, and that's what they were trying to eliminate.
Yeah.
And
I agree with Edwin in the chat as well. That's where it ended. Everything else is Elseworlds stories.
Yeah, definitely, sir.
Yeah, but as another thing as well, this movie, when it came out, the critics hated it. They didn't like the direction. They didn't like the concept, but the fans love it. A similarity to today, where a film that fans like, the critics hate, and vice versa.
Well, I talked a lot about Russell Mulcahy in the primary director. I do want to give some credit to I just ran past it, because the second unit guy did amazing work on this. I just want to mention his name just because he deserves the credit, and I've gone too far and I just boomered it, so never mind.
That's fine. And imagine watching this. I mean, my brother went to see this when it came out. And I remember how excited he was when he came back and talked about it. I was a little too young to watch it because of the violence. I think we had like a certificate 15 or something. You had to be 15 to watch it. But imagine it's 1989. You've just watched this movie and you're leaving the theater as, this fantastic song by Queen's playing, brilliant. A moment to remember. But yeah, it actually didn't make money after its initial release in America. It made the money on VHS, and it became and is probably one of the most well-loved fan films of the 80s, definitely.
Yeah, it was good. On I hadn't seen it in a couple of years, and on rewatching again and catching some of the things that you guys are bringing up, I enjoyed it. Very good.
Yeah. Okay. So the gentleman that I wanted to reference, and this is why it came. I knew I had a note down to mention the second unit guy. So the second unit director on Highlander was David Tringham. David Tringham is probably known to most people for the body of his work. He's been second unit camera guy in a ton of movies. He filmed all of anything that Bragnaw was not behind the camera for in Henry V. Tringham filmed it.
Yeah.
And you definitely see it in some of the stock second unit work in Highlander. And he deserves a specific call out. I usually don't go that deep in it, but this film, he did great work in Scotland. A lot of the Scotland shots are him. And he's worth a mention. Stephen Hopkins also worked on it. He was director of Predator 2.
Yeah.
And that's the extent of what I will reference.
Yeah. Jesse in the chat says, and I totally agree with this, let's see what Rotten Tomatoes asked to say about it. And the other thing says is completely satisfied, unlike the films of today. And I think that's one of the points about why we're doing this, because we're trying to show by going back to these films and revisiting, we're really sort of flying the flag to show, what culture used to be, what we remember, and the best bits of it, and we're trying to contrast that with what's happening now. So that's what that's what we're really trying to do with this whole series. We're trying to show what was the best of what we grew up with. Why does it remain good? Will anybody be? Some of the movies, I won't mention anything specifically, but some of the movies being made now, are they going to be being watched in 30 years' time? I don't think so. So it's really important that the takeaway from this is we have this treasure trove of movies. We have this heritage of culture. It's important to preserve it, and it's important that we judge today's culture by high standards. We shouldn't let our standards drop. So, is any final thoughts on the movie before we go, Aldous and Cole?
No, it was just a good time being here with you all, and hopefully we're going to let our audience decide what our next genre is going to be. That's what we talked about. Is that correct, Pete?
I think without saying too much, I think we're going to look at a different idea of taking one story and seeing how many times that's changed and made into something different. So without saying too much, I think we might be going down that direction.
Oh, cool.
Which is going to
I just like to say thanks so much, Pete, for having us on. I got to step away for just a minute. I'll catch you guys in post. But thank you, everybody in the chat, for showing up. This has been a treat. I mean, I just can't praise Carl and Pete enough for letting me get involved in this. I've enjoyed it very much. So thank you very much.
It's been fun working with you guys.
Absolutely. I'll speak to you later, Aldous. Yes, Carl. So that's the end of our Source and Sorcery series. So thank you to everybody who turned up, everybody in the chat. Thank you to Cosmetti. Thank you to Jesse. Thank you to Edwin the Ace. And also thank you to Johnny Five. Thank you also to Comic Girl Ava. And I think we also had in the chat, if I just scroll back, Fedorable. And also, who else did we have there? Scrolling back. Who else says that?
Let's not keep them any longer than we have to, because
so
Caesar's on right now. The full comics get live.
Yeah, and join us for the next format for the show, which I think is going to be about in 2 weeks. But thank you again, and take care, everybody.